Yo, what's going on, gamers, coders, speedrunners, and all-around game enthusiasts? This is Joystick Justin, and welcome to another Java Quick tutorial. This tutorial is going to be all about enums. What is an enum? How do you use it? And let's just get right into it. So here's a main method. I've set up a main method. Now, in any class, you can have an enum. So you can go like this: public enum. Here's the name of your enum. I'll just call it enum1. And then here's your list of values in the enum. So you can have A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. At the end of so here's your list of values. So an enum, what it really is, you're making your own variable type, similar to ints, chars, strings, those kind of things. So you're making your own variable type. So that's really all it is. So you have a list of values, and you end your list of values with a semicolon. Now, your list of values don't have to be on different lines. That's just kind of a convention. You can go like this, and it'll work exactly the same way. Now, just because of the way that I like to do things, I put my enums in a list. Now, if you don't have anything else after your list, so here you start with a list, and then there's some stuff that you can put after the list. We'll get into that in a minute. But if you're not going to have anything after the list, you don't need that semicolon. However, just by convention, you should put the semicolon in anyway. If you are going to have anything after your list of enums, you're going to have a bunch of errors because it's going to not know that you're done setting up your list and you're going on to the next thing. So you can set up an enum in a class. Simple enough. Now, declaring an enum is very similar to declaring your variable types. So think of it as an int, a char, a string, whatever. This enum1 is the type. So the way you go int I equals 1, it's a similar idea. The type is this guy right here, enum1. And then you can give it the variable a name. So I'll call it letter. And then you can go enum1.a. So that's where it varies a little bit. You can't just go letter equals a. It doesn't work. You have to say enum1 dot and then the value. So that's the first thing you can do. Now, if I go sysout.println and just print the letter, it will print the name of the value. So let's just go run it. You got A, okay? If I switch the enum to a C, it'll run C. Now, if we haven't defined like Z, we haven't defined it, so you can't actually have that. So if I add a Z, if I added all the letters in the alphabet, you get to Z. Now, this is very similar to just a char. So there's no point in just having letters like this because you're basically just defining a char and kind of just wasting memory. But you can use an enum to define many different things. So the other thing you can do is you can go enum.values. Now this gets your list of values as an array. So I can go like this, enum1, and now you have the values as an array. So all the values in enum1 are in this letter variable. Now this is a weird way of printing it off. But if I go, this is like an array where this is the 0 index, this is 1, 2, 3. So right after these two brackets, you can put square brackets as if you're defining an array, and I can go 0. Now the letter is set to whatever is the 0 column, which is this, letter A. So you printed off the letter A. If I go 2, printed off letter C, which is the third value in the list, but it goes 0, 1, 2, so C is 3. C is 2. So that's one way of using an enum. The other way is you can define a new enum. So right here, when you go and define a new class, you can define a new enum. So this will be straight up just an enum. So I'll just call it test, and the enum's name is test. So similar to the way you define it here, now you have another variable type called test. that stores a list of variables called, let's just go test1, test2, test3, so forth. I mean, so forth is also the name of one of the tests, I guess. So yeah. Now, how do I access these? Well, it's the exact same thing. Test. Test variable equals test. The variable defines the variable name, and they can have all these different values. So test2, and sys out a variable, you're going to get test2. So it's going to print off the name. So when you try to print it, it just prints off the name of this value, the name of the value name, which is kind of cool. Now, what if you want to, say, define a string and test name? This variable holds the name of whichever value you want to set, and I'm going to go test3. Well, if I want to now set the variable, this test type variable, to test3, this is a string, so what you can actually do is go value of, and this right here, value of, it's a string argument. So you can pass in test name, which is already did. So this is passing test3 into here. So test3 is in the list, it's this one. So it sets it to test3 when you print it. I can go name it so forth. Don't know if I spelled that right. I did not have a U in there. But this will work the exact same way. It'll now set it to the variable so forth. Now, if I had that U in there, it's going to be like, hold up. U, that's not a name. No enum constant test dot so forth. That U in there, there's nothing named so forth with that U in there. So it's like, okay, there's no name there. We're just going to throw an error and end your program. Now, here's where enums become powerful. If you go like this, you can start to define variables in each enum value. So that might be confusing, but let's just go like this. Private, let's actually make a new enum to do this. So new enum, I'm going to call this one positions. Now, in this list, I'm going to have balloon. I think that's how you spell balloon. Don't quote me on it. Human. And groundhog. And I'm going to be like, okay, well, each one of these is allowed to have a private int x, a private int y. So that's their x and y values. And then you can actually have, similar to how you have a class constructor, you can have a enum constructor, positions, and passing it an int x and an int y. Now in here you can go this dot x equals x, this dot y equals y. Now what that does is you pass it the values x and y, and you set the instance x and the instance y to whatever variable you pass it. Now up here you got some errors. So what it's wanting us to do is it's wanting us to define this constructor. So I'm going to go, and it's almost like each of these is now a class with the variable names, with their instance variables being x and y, which are ints. So a balloon, let's say x equals 7, and y, well, it's a helium balloon, so it's going to be up in the air at 100. Human, it can be wherever it wants on the x. Maybe it's in its home at like 502. And it's at ground level, 0. And the groundhog is, well, maybe he let go of the balloon. And he's underground. He's down 50 meters under the ground. Well, there you go. Now you have groundhog. So if I want to go and actually get these values, so I'm going to stop playing with that. We're going to do positions now. Positions. me equals positions.human. This is my position. Now, if I want to go sysout, so we can do all the same things we had before. So I can go me, and I can print off me, which tells me, okay, I'm a human. Now, what is my x? Well, first of all, there's going to be an error because it's going to be like, okay, well, it's private, right? I set these variables to private, so we need accessors and mutators. So getter and setter. Get x, set x. There it is. So now you have accessor and mutators. So now this is going to work. So if I print it, you're going to see 512, which is the position of the human. There, its x value. When we initiate it, its x value is 512. I hope I've given you enough time to sink that in while I was letting my cat leave. Yeah, my cat just wanted to escape. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is this. Now if I change this to hog and be like, okay, where is your y value? Now, what was it? Groundhog? I didn't define as ground. Can't spell, can I? Groundhog. Get y. Well, actually, here, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to go, give me the x. And it's going to be like, what? There's no give me getter setters. So it's going to add getters and setters for y, because it's a private value. I'm assuming you have some knowledge of Java to understand why getters and setters and privates and variables and all that stuff is important. But now we just got the y value for groundhog, which is defined as -50. So that is very powerful. So you can have each instance in the enum can have its own values. And you can kind of, in a way, you can give those values. So I can go like x and go, well, maybe not x, constant x. And I can define that as being public static int constant x as being 100. Now you're throwing an error. It is seeing an issue. And I'm kind of actually learning that right here and right now. So as you can see, it doesn't actually know what constant x is. And you can't really define this. Public static int. It's not going to work because it wants there to be a list at the top. So if I move this down to here, there's still going to be errors because it hasn't been initiated yet. So see right here, it's going to be, well, you need to declare it before. Okay, so let me try declaring it before. And now it's going to be like, whoa, you need your variable, you need your list at the top. So you can have something like that happen, but you can take it from somewhere else. So I can go main. I'm assuming I can do this. Now it knows what that is. And if I want to get the balloon. So I'm trying, well, my point here is you can pass it its values. 100, which is constant x. And I can change the balloon. Let's say the balloon went up 100 meters. Well, there you go. That didn't work. Oh, well, that's because we're in the x. We want to get the x. Sorry, get x. So the x it moved in a direction. Sorry about a few of these errors I'm showing here, but I'm actually kind of somewhat learning how this part works right here now. But there you go. So that's kind of what your enum is. So to review, you can have just a set of your own variables. You can define it in a class, or you can define an enum outside of a class. And this is just a list of values. Now you can have these brackets here, but if there is no constructor, you don't need them. And I would usually not include them if there is no constructor. in the Enum class. So this is just a list of values that works with the type test. And this is like a type similar to an int, a string, a char, all those kind of things. Whereas positions, now here you have a bunch of different values that you can have. You have an x, a y, all of these different things. So I'm going to now show you a practical application, because that's what we like to do. Practical applications. How can I use this in a code? Well, I'll show you right here in the game that I've been coding. I've used enums a few times, and I'm starting to use them more, and they have become very powerful. They're a very powerful tool. You can figure out how to use them correctly. So there's a few instances of enums. So I have a few of the enums open right here. So first of all, here's the state. Enum stores what state you're in. So if I give it a second. So right now the state is main menu, because we're just in the main menu, the first menu you see when you open the game. Click single player. Now if I actually go into a world, now we're in the in-world state. So we're using the state and storing it in what I'm calling adapt state variable. And we start here, and we start in the main menu, and we move throughout the whole game, kind of. And then in the game, there are these tiles. So you run around, and you just kind of interact with the tiles that are around. So there are certain tiles that have containers. So a crafting bench, you just kind of use it to craft. It's not, well, it's a stone table. And then there's this little cube. But over here, these are containers. So if I right-click this, it's a blast furnace. It has a few ores in it, and I can throw coal in it, turn it on. So I need to know, okay, so if I want to make a container and throw it on the screen, I need to know, okay, so there's a enum for every single tile in the game. So here's the tile IDs. So there's a blank tile, there's a boulder, there's pebbles, there's trees that you can see over here. That's a tree in this corner here. There's blank tiles, there's walls, there's doors. This is the blast furnace. So if we look at the list, we can see the blast furnace is right here. So now that we have a blast furnace, I want to be like, okay, so the container blast furnace correlates to the tile ID for the blast furnace. And then I have a few other things. Is it an electronic device? Does it like use electricity that's going to be in the game? Well, no, it doesn't. Can it be turned on and off? Well, yes, it can. You put fuel in it, and then you hit the on button, and it turns on. So yes, it can. So you have some of the value. This is a very good demonstration of you can actually use them in the game, and you can have certain things defined. And then you can be like, okay, so when you hit the on button, you can be like, okay, is this a container, first of all? Yes, okay. Is it a container that can turn on and off? And it's Boolean will be like true or false. Well, if it's a blast furnace, true. If it's anything else, nope, it can't be turned on and off. Don't do anything if you hit the on button. So, yeah, it's that simple. That's how you use enums. And I have like many enums in the game. So another example, I'll close this. Another example is right here. There's actually, you can also overload, I think is the word. Overload your constructors. So let's say whenever I want, I'll give you an example of what I want to do. Now you've learned a lot about enum, so now you're just going to take a look at some more in-depth stuff. You can leave the video now if you have been satisfied. But let's say, okay, I want to go over here, empty out this blast furnace, and pick it up. In the corner, we have blast furnace. It tells you it added one blast furnace with a space in between. Now, in the enums, it's not going to let you put a space between. It's going to throw a bunch of errors. So, instead, what I've done is, anywhere where I want there to be a space, I have instead made a constructor that you can give it the name. So, for example, a blank tile, or a tree. Okay, so if I initialize the tree, let's look here. This .toString. Well, name. So there's this private name value, and so this is the name of the blast furnace, but the tree is this .toString. So what toString does is just literally just takes the name here directly and makes it a string. So wooden wall would be just the string wooden wall inside of quotes. But if I want to make it, okay, wooden wall, I want there to be a space. Then uses this constructor instead, using the string that I've given it, which is wooden wall, it's a name, and sets the name to the name I've given it. So now, if I am looking at a blast furnace, it will change it. It'll be with a space. And if I didn't have the space there, it's actually over here. I've done the same thing over here. So if I find the blast furnace, remove the space, then as you can see, if I go to collect this blast furnace, there's no space here, there's no space there, because I've just removed it. As you can hear my cats in the background. So I gotta go, but thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. I hope this has been helpful. It's kind of a longer one, but I hope that now you understand exactly what an enum is. Don't forget to keep on gaming. See you in the next one.